everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's time for me and Pastor Brian to talk about episode 8 of Rings of Power. We kind of took a little break there, but now we're back and we're looking at this last episode. I think I was kind of waiting if I could hear when season 2 is going to premiere, because supposedly they finished filming before the strike last summer. But I've been searching around the internet. I see no information from Amazon on anything. Just it should be sometime in 2024. Okay, well, we're 2.5 months into 2024, and we haven't seen anything about a release date yet. So we're going to go ahead and talk about episode 8 from season 1, which had some really cool things and maybe some kind of frustrating things. And so I'll go ahead and let Pastor Brian tell us something about episode 8 that he noticed and he wants to talk about.
Thank you. Well, not surprising, rewatching, you find more things. I mean, that's not surprising. I think in this episode, definitely there were things where I was like, oh, that sinks into me more than last time I watched it. Like, that touches me more. I'm not a big poetry guy, but like just certain poetic words, tying loose ends and things like that were really enjoyable. The ones that were. As a theater director, the lack of pace made me nuts. And then also, just as someone trying to watch it, the extended action scene in the pitch black makes me nuts too. And nothing was worse than the 18 farewell scenes among Harfoots that like lasted a third of the episode, saying like 1/100th of the dialogue. So, but overall, there were some moments the first time where I kind of felt like, did I miss it? Did I not understand it? Whereas now I just kind of felt like, okay, what I felt was right. And just, I don't have to hold on till next season, which hopefully comes soon, to get that. I mean, in my opinion, I get, okay, that's Gandalf. Okay. I get it. Sauron's whispering. He's using your words against you and things like that. So that was it felt complete to me. It felt a little slow at times, and then there were kind of dangling participles that I never did figure out why they were there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we had a sort of mixed bag here. I felt like they've been trying really hard to make you think that the stranger was Sauron and that Halbrand was maybe really the king of the South. And they were going to reveal now in episode 8, no, the stranger is really Gandalf and Halbrand is really Sauron. But I think if you were watching and you have any idea of what was going on from the Silmarillion or even Lord of the Rings, that you knew that this was going to be Gandalf and that Halbrand was going to be Sauron, right? Almost from the get-go. Because as soon as they land in Numenor, what does Halbrand do? He goes and starts smithing, right? And I'm sure we've said before, smiths end up on the bad end of Tolkien's scale of things for whatever reason. I don't know why he didn't care for smiths, but Sauron was a student of Aule, and so was Saruman. And so Aule is clearly not the best teacher. I mean, he teaches them how to smith things, but they both turn bad in the end. Of course, Celebrimbor is the grandson of Fëanor, who made the Silmarils and the Palantir, and he kind of went nuts, and his sons weren't much better. So Celebrimbor's dad wasn't too great, So Smiths just kind of get a raw deal in Tolkien, which I find interesting because, like in the movies, the Lord of the Rings, you see Saruman telling the orcs to cut down all the trees and stick them in the fire, and this is bad, right? Putting trees in the fire is bad. It's what gets the Ensal mad and everything. But if you're an elvish smith, you still have to cut trees down, and you've got to make your fire somehow. So it's like elvish smiths, it's okay to cut a few trees down, and everybody in like Gondor had armor, so that all had to be forged somehow, and they all have swords. So there's obviously some smithies going somewhere. But when they cut trees down, it's fine. It's only when the orcs cut trees down that it's bad. So I kind of feel that here too. It's like, okay, so smiths might be on the bad end of things, but we don't really like lay it at their feet like here with Celebrimbor. He's got to be cutting down trees doing things as well, but but apparently we're going to skip over that. So in this episode they kind of like, whoa, look, the stranger. It turns out he's Gandalf, and I'm kind of like, kind of like knew that, and then, oh, look, Halbrand's Sauron. It's kind of like, yeah, I figured that one out quite a while ago. So they were trying to be like really sneaky on the reveals and just not managing it. And I think it would be better if they just not even tried. We know who these characters are going to turn out to be because of what the guy, the stranger turns out to be. He's nice. He's trying to help. When he hurts someone, it's not on purpose. And Halbrand's sneaky and he's smart. In this episode, we see him, pretending to be a simple human smith, yet feeding Celebrimbor these ideas on how to make the rings, right?
Yeah.
And
Lots of flattery too. Yeah.
Some flattering. Oh, I never thought my old teacher, told me about your grandfather or whatever, and the mighty Celebrimbor, and I just never thought I'd meet you and see your smithy, I'm just this poor little human, and you're this elf lord and so powerful, blah, blah, blah. But, he says it so that the Celebrimbor started to take those ideas if they were his, right? Because then he tells Gil-galad and Elrond, well, blah, blah, blah. And someone says, well, who said that? Maybe Galadriel's like, who said that?
Galadriel said that,
Yeah, was it you or was it Halbrand, And he's like, well, the human just sort of like hinted or guessed, but I'm the one who put it all together, So Sauron's got Celebrimbor kind of eaten out of his hand there. And I think that was well done. That's part of the episode I really did like, showing how Sauron can be kind of subtle and working his evil there in the background, which he does, to bring down Numenor in the Silmarillion, right? He pretends to not want to be captured in the Silmarillion and Ikalabeth, but he really does want to be captured. He gets taken back to Numenor, where he is then able to whisper into the ears of all the people who are in power, and manages to get them at each other's throats and practicing human sacrifices and all kinds of things, because he's whispering and flattering people in just the right way to make them do that and then think it's their own idea. So, that's the kind of character he is, and I was glad to see that they actually put that in the episode.
I mean, he even knew Galadriel would bring him to the elves, right? When he was well, I was thinking to myself, I haven't read as much, but I've read quite a few of the books by Tolkien, and one of the things I kept thinking when they were doing this kind of slow reveal, kind of like maybe not, was I felt like generally when people are introduced to me in Tolkien, he tells you like their whole lineage and who they are and where they came from. So I thought this was not characteristic very much of my experience of much of Tolkien lore, Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were trying to be clever, and this is not something to be clever about. His characters are too important, and it's too clear that one's a smith and one's a good guy, and
I don't need like, ooh, wow, oh, I didn't know that moment. That's just not why I'm watching it. That doesn't translate into I'm smart to me or anything like, I mean, just tell me.
So we see, as you said, the elves here a bit. Galadriel does a little snooping and finds out that Halbrand can't be, or sorry, Halbrand can't be who he says he is. But he's never really said he was either, right? He spent several episodes going, oh no, I'm nobody, and then it's Galadriel's like, well, I believe you are the proper king of the Southlands, because he's been like suggesting kind of, a little bit here and there and hinting, and she takes it up. So now she knows she's been bamboozled, right? But then she won't tell Elrond. She's like, who's going to trust me? I'm not going to say my mistake.
I mean, he's pretty hot. It's easy to fall for him because he's damn good looking.
Yeah. So
I like that though. The evil is so good looking. That's good.
Well, Lucifer is supposed to be the most beautiful angel, right? Because if evil were ugly, why would anybody choose it?
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, evil is good looking here now. And in Tolkien, Sauron is able to look fair, as in i.e. beautiful, until the downfall of Numenor. Once he loses his physical form and can come back in like shadow form, from that point on, he's not able to appear fair. He can only appear ugly. So we're still at the point of history where he can look good. That will come later where he can't manage it anymore. So we get those kind of reveals, but then we get these three characters that have been like chasing Gandalf around thinking that he's Sauron, these three women, and they're not revealed, right? We have no idea who they are. We have no idea why they serve Sauron or where they came from. I think we could have had one throwaway line somewhere where they could have said, or someone could have said, hey, aren't these the three who guarded the gates of blah, blah, blah when Sauron ruled there? Or, one of them could say, Lord Sauron, remember how we did blah, blah, blah when we served you in the first age? Just one line, but we don't get it. And so it's like, who the heck are these women? Are they
Yeah.
human? Are they, like orcs, like where they've been like elves but have been turned into something else? Or are they something completely different? Are they other Maiar like Gandalf and Sauron? Um, who are they? And what are their powers and what are they doing? And why do they think Gandalf is Sauron? And it's just, and then they just sort of get disposed of, right? They make Gandalf mad, and he basically throws a fireball at them, and they turn into moths, and they're gone. And it's like, well, I don't know if they're banished forever or just temporarily, and they'll be back in season 2. But
Yeah.
I still know nothing about them, so I feel like those we could have revealed something.
Yeah. I just kept, I mean, and again, I don't know why it just is striking, maybe because I'm such a Gen Xer, but I just kept being like, why are these Lower East Side New York club kids from the 1980s here? You know what I mean? Like, it's just every time they just weren't consistent with anything else. Maybe that's it. They were so strikingly unique in how they looked, kind of like the elves, which is a whole different story. But that I was like, they have to be part of something that's important, but they're just window dressing, but they look extremely distinctive.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they blow up the hobbits' carts, right? So now the hobbits don't have their carts anymore, and they threaten to kill some hobbits here, and it makes Gandalf mad. But did they really contribute much to the plot? I mean, did it matter if the hobbits would have lost their carts or kept their carts? I guess they managed to kill Sadok, but he could have died some other way if you really need him dead, or did he really have to die? Maybe he could have been around for season 2. I don't know that his death was that important to the plot. So did they accomplish anything plot wise? I don't think so. Do we know anything about them? No. Should we know something about them? At least one thing, you know. So I thought they were not well utilized at all.
Yeah. Other than making it so that the little hobbit, where they said her, I mean, the little Harfoot, they said her name, their whole name at the end too, to go off with Gandalf, right? Like, so because they had been in peril a couple times and he had saved them a couple times, I mean, that makes sense, but they were in different kinds of perils. So it didn't have to be the club kids there doing it, but.
Yeah, I thought that didn't work for me. I hope that if they come back in season 2, we'll find out who they are and why they serve Sauron and where they came from and what kind of creatures.
But it doesn't make sense to introduce them for a whole series and never resolve it in the whole season. Yeah, that's weird.
So we completely did not have any dwarves in this episode. So the dwarves are, often dwarf things, I guess, and we didn't see them. So we covered a bit of the hobbits, and we saw a bit of the elves with the whole forging of the rings, which we finally now rings of power. We finally at least forged the 3 elven rings here, Nenya, Narya, and Vilya. And then we just get a little teeny bit of going back to Numenor and finding out that, the king has died while they were gone. We do get these interesting scenes with Elendil's daughter, Iarian. So she's going to be a sketch artist or whatever. She's like in sculpture school or something, right? She's gonna do sculpture or something.
Yeah, she's gonna build his tomb, I guess, or whatever.
We'll design the figure that will go on it, I guess. So she's one of the potentials, right? So she gets an hour to sit with the dying guy, which is creepy enough, right? And then he just like walks off, right? So she goes, yells for help, and then she comes back and he's gone, and she finds him like with the Palantir. And I don't think we get much more than that, right? He tells her I look too long. So we know that he's looked in the Palantir too long. He's apparently lost his mind or something. I'm just assuming that the Palantir just showed him too many futures for his mind to cope with. Because at this point, obviously, Sauron does not have one. So you cannot look into the Palantir and get captured by Sauron the way that, like Saruman and Denethor are in The Lord of the Rings. Because at that point, Sauron has one. I think he has the one from Osgiliath. I'm not sure, but or maybe the one from Minas Ithil. But still, he has one at that point. So when Aragorn looks in it, when Denethor looks in it, when Saruman looks in it, they are looking into Sauron as he's looking into them, right? But at this point, Sauron doesn't have one. So when you look into a Palantir, it's just going to show you, I guess, random possible futures, but maybe you can get lost in them. I guess.
Yeah.
So
He
we don't
said he
know if the
couldn't remember
Arvin.
what was past or future or
Yeah, I couldn't tell the
present
real.
or,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we don't know if she looked in it or not. I don't think. I don't think we saw her do it, but she had the opportunity because it was there with a cover over it. So we don't know. Maybe we'll find out in season 2 that she looked in it. Now she's kind of seeing some possible futures. Maybe she'll turn into like a soothsayer or something. Well, if we keep doing this, then this is the future that's likely to happen because that's what I saw in the Palantir. And she kind of elf-like that way. The elves in Lord of the Rings kind of have this ability to tell the future, but it's more like being a futurist, right? It's not like they have a magic power. It's more like they've seen so much and they've lived through so much that they can say, seeing as how things are going now, um, it's really likely that X, Y, and Z are going to happen unless we
Yeah.
change it. So they can kind of have a pretty good educated guess as what the future is going to hold. It can seem weird when you see it a couple times in the book. It's like they're getting magical stuff because Aragorn can do it too, since he's descended from elves. So when they're going to go into Moria in Lord of the Rings, Aragorn says, "I say to you, Gandalf, don't go into Moria." He doesn't say it to everybody else. He somehow correctly divines that Gandalf's the one in danger if they go through Moria. And so I say to you, Gandalf, you should not go into Moria. So the elves have this quirky ability to tell the future just by kind of like looking at the present and the past that they remember, because of course they're immortal, so they remember thousands of years. Elrond does it at some point. So now maybe we're going to get maybe Iarian or whoever looks into the Palantir is going to sort of get that power, but because they're human, maybe they're not able to harness it without going a little bit quirky in the mind. I don't know. Okay, hopefully we'll
Yeah.
find out if season 2 ever comes out, since
Yeah.
they should be coming out sometime.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
The song at the end helped me put it all back into pieces too, right? Like and that's well done. I thought that was interesting. I remember when I was reading the books, the songs annoyed me, and I knew they were significant, but but this time that song at the end, it helps put it in, and so that was helping me a little bit put all the pieces back together. I liked that.
Yeah, I like our characters in like Lord of the Rings. Like at some point, Sam, when they've just met Aragorn and they're like still calling him Strider, and they're walking toward Rivendell, and Sam's like, Gil-galad was an elven king, him the minstrel sadly sing, the last whose realm was fair and free between the mountains and the sea. He's like, that's just some little ditty that my mother used to sing or whatever. And like Aragorn's like, well, but it's actually part of this really long elfish song. And so it's like, yeah, you get where these songs have gone around to different cultures, and they're all important. And I think what they're singing, like the whole thing about, 3 rings for the Elven Kings, that the whole poem for the end. So we've only seen the 3 Elven rings being forged. So like I think in the Alcalabeth, we're told that other rings are forged before, right? The ones for the dwarves and the ones for men, I think the 9 for men and the 7 for dwarves are forged earlier. And it's only later that Celebrimbor is going to forge the Elven rings. But at this point, they're suspicious of Sauron, that his reformation. He does try, supposedly, to be a reformed character during the Second Age. He just doesn't make it. But they're kind of getting that his reformation isn't real, or it didn't take. And so Celebrimbor makes these in secret. And the way that, the ring bearers, if you're an elf and have Vilya, Nenya, or Narya during the Third Age, the way you can wear them and use them, at least secretly, is because Sauron had no part in their making. So he cannot control those rings like he can the others that he actually helped create. And obviously the one that he forges himself, he has the most control over. But the 3 that the elves have are not his to control. So we kind of see that here where he's gone from Eregion. And then that's when Celebrimbor is like, you know what? I need that dagger of yours, Galadriel. I need gold and silver from Valinor. That's the only thing that'll be pure enough and good enough and whatever, blessed enough to make this mithril work and do what we want to do with it. So, she gives up her brother's dagger, and they make the 3 rings without Sauron being around. But they haven't mentioned the others yet, so maybe in the next season, Sauron will forge them, at Mount Doom or something. So we'll actually see him being involved in the whole ring making process, perhaps.
Yeah, that was what was cool, because I was like, okay, yeah, I remember that. Are they made? Did we see it? Are we gonna see them be made? That's why I was, but it just helped me contextualize this where they feel like this is in the story. So yeah, I liked that.
Yeah. The of course the Nine Rings puts humans under Sauron's control pretty much because he made them, and people are weak, basically. The dwarves are very stubborn. And so their seven rings, even though Sauron had a hand in making them, they're not as susceptible. So they are able to use those rings to some extent without Sauron being able to control them in return. Because those nine rings to the mortal men doomed to die, that where he gets his real being able to control these ring rights and turning them basically, into what Tolkien thought evil was. Is if you right from the page 2 or 3 of Silmarillion through Lord of the Rings, evil is empty. It's hollowed out, from the inside. It's not something, it's nothing. It's nothingness. There's many times in Lord of the Rings where, the word nothingness is used, or emptiness, to describe evil. When Frodo puts on the ring at Parthgalen and sees the eye, the pupil, beyond the pupil, there's just nothing. There's nothing inside Sauron. And then when he and Sam and Gollum are walking by Minas Morgul, the windows look inside toward nothingness. So the windows are normally, you think of a window as something you look outside, but at Minas Morgul, it's inwardly focused and there's nothing on the inside. So, we're getting that kind of, I think we're kind of getting that with Sauron. We're starting to, he's clever, he's smart, but basically my favorite line in this whole series is when he's trying to convince Galadriel to sign on with him, and she's like, well, do you want to heal the world or rule it? And he looks at her for a few seconds, and he's like, I don't see the difference. And I think that right there underlines what evil is. It doesn't have anything on the inside. It can't imagine healing anything. It can only imagine ruling things. And that's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So you get this, evil is limited in Tolkien.
Yeah.
There's some tight constraints on it. It can be powerful. It's not necessarily restrained in a sense of how much power it can wield, but in how much imagination it has. It has none. It has no ability to create anything. We were told earlier, in the Silmarillion, that when Morgoth turned orcs, from elves into orcs, it couldn't make orcs out of nothing. It had to take elves and twist them, right? It had to take something that was already created. So God can just make elves pop out at Quovian and just poof, hey, there's elves, But Morgoth can't do that. Morgoth has to take elves and turn them into orcs. And so, evil is just very limited in that kind of capacity. And we see Halbrand being limited here as well.
Right. For Sauron, he has to rule, right? Not just somebody rule.
Right.
At this point, anyway, he has to rule.
That's as far as his imagination.
That's the only salvation.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the only salvation.
And that's throughout the whole Lord of the Rings, which you don't really get in the movies because I think it's hard to really, describe what a, disembodied eye has any motives. But, throughout Lord of the Rings, he is incapable of basically outmaneuvering the good guys. He can outpower them. He can send a larger army because he's got lots of orcs and men from the Southlands and stuff. So sure, he can send 100,000 orcs against you and some cave trolls and some, Mumakil and some Southlanders, but can he outthink you? No. Can he outimagine you? No. Can he draw up a battle plan? No, not really. He just has to throw lots of people into the fray and hope that's enough people to win. That's basically all he can do. So, evil is not clever in that sense. It cannot create, it cannot imagine, but it can whisper into your ear. So there's these books by Tom Shippey where he mentions that the view of evil in Tolkien is very 20th century. He's like, if 3,000 years from now, someone were to pick up Lord of the Rings and they read it, despite the fact that he uses some archaic grammar and some archaic words and some tropes from, the Norse sagas and things, anybody in the future is going to pin that book down as a 20th century book because the way evil is treated. And that pre-20th century, before you get people saying, like Lord Acton saying what, absolute power corrupts absolutely and things like that, that people assumed you just were good or you were bad, right? If you're a bad king, you were just born to be a bad king. It's sort of like part of your makeup. But now we think of more of evil as something that you turn into, like you,
Yeah.
and that's what Tolkien's used here. So everything starts off good. Gandalf even says in Lord of the Rings, um, nothing in the beginning, like nothing is evil. Even Sauron was not so. So everything starts out good, and it's only by
Mhm.
allowing yourself to be like drained and like emptied out, like an acid
Yeah.
just eating you away, that you become evil. So, so we get this kind of this evil throughout Lord of the Rings, and hopefully we're seeing that here in this as well.
That's the struggle in Christianity. This idea you're created in God's image and you're good, but then they talk about original sin, which
Mhm.
doesn't go with that, and then they talk about the fall, right? Like so, it's like, but wait, you were born good, but no, you had original sin, but then you fell. So yeah, there's a wrestling with that. Excuse me.
All right, so we don't get any dwarves. We do get a little bit of Numenor, but not very much. And we get the
That much.
extended goodbye scenes with the little proto hobbits, where they do a
Mhm.
lot of reaction shots. Yeah, I've mentioned that since I'm not an actor, I don't know how this goes, and I'm always impressed when I see a scene where someone seems to be able to pause just the right amount of time to make it seem like they actually came up with the line themselves, and that this is what their character would do or say. Their character would sit there for maybe 2.5 seconds, or would have like look down at their feet or whatever they do before they actually like deliver their line. And I'm always thinking like, I don't know if I would have that kind of timing, you know, except here we just have people just like staring or
Yeah,
looking sad seconds after seconds after seconds, and it just keeps going.
yeah.
So that what did go on for a while.
Yeah, it really did. Well, it works for an elf maybe, but it doesn't really work for a proto hobbit, right? Like they're people of action and senses, right? They're not people of mystical
Hmm.
contemplation. Yeah, but it went way too long. Way too long.
So we get elves, we get Numenor, and we get the proto hobbits, but we do not get dwarves, and we do not get anything from the Southlands in this episode either. So what all those people are doing down there right now, we don't know. We do finish this off though. We've forged the rings. Galadriel and Elrond and Celebrimbor now all have their reaction shots where they stare at the rings for, I don't know, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. There's quite a bit of screen time as they just look at the rings. They don't even like touch them or pick them up or anything. Now I don't know how they'll assign them. The Ring of Fire, Narya was originally given to Círdan, but we have not seen Círdan as a character here, so I don't know who's going to get that. Círdan is the one who gives it to Gandalf, and then Gil-galad gets Vilya the Ring of Air, and then when he, shovels off this particular immortal coil, he gives it to Elrond, and so that's how Elrond ends up with it. And then Galadriel has the Ring of Adamant, Minya, the Ring of Water. So she's standing there, right? And Elrond will eventually get the Ring of Air, but how that Ring of Fire is going to get to Gandalf, I guess we don't quite know yet. But then we leave them and we go to what will be Mordor someday, and here's Halbrand walking into this blasted land where now the volcano has made it almost like dusk or night all the time, so the orcs can come out during the daytime and aren't limited to being underground anymore. And he's just going to walk off to Mount Doom.
Yeah,
And we get to
which
say with a song.
yeah, it was another cool moment too. Again, seeing him so beautiful, walking into Mordor with that kind of trying to look evil, but like with that
Hmm.
beautiful face, right? But you saw it changing. It was changing even while he was talking to Galadriel, right? Like so.
Yeah.
But that was just a cool juxtaposition, especially knowing yeah, just yeah, and that was real
Juxtaposition.
juxtaposition. I'm missing something there. Yeah, juxtaposition. But it's not something I would never have seen in my mind of Sauron walking into Mordor that way. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, so at least we get to see him go there. And it's like, oh, here, look, we didn't really get that scene in the books or even the Silmarillion where we see Sauron going, I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to set up there, right? So now you
Yeah.
get to see him actually walk over the border and be like, yeah, this is it. I'm setting up this place. So yeah, I'll be interested in season two. What if the people they left in the Southlands are still waiting for him to come back as king, right? And he left with the Galadriel when he was injured, and she's like, I need to get him to some elvish medicine, and they're expecting him to come back and be king, and now it's be like, yeah, he's not king. Sorry, it was a mistake, and yeah, he's not here anymore. So we'll see that scene or not, but it'll be interesting if we do.
I caught that this time that I hadn't before, where she says, "You fought with me," and he says, "Against my enemy too," which was I hadn't thought of it that way. That was something
My enemy
different.
is my friend, right?
Yeah,
Except the enemy of my enemy is, I guess, like not quite my enemy just this afternoon.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That was it raised my ears a little bit. Yeah,
yeah. And so the enemy that they both had was Adar, who
yeah,
was probably the most interesting character this in the whole thing. I think it was really well done. I know he's coming back as a
yes.
character, but they've recast it, so it'll be a different actor.
Oh, that's right. That's a shame. Yeah.
So, and I don't know what happened there, because everyone's being real, maybe he didn't want to come back for the second season, and maybe he was tired of the makeup. I don't know, but although he was in Game of Thrones and as the dead uncle, right? So he got to wear like zombie makeup in that. So you'd think he's kind of used. So I don't know, but he's put out his little statement about how he was really happy to be involved, and it was a great production, all that kind of stuff. Blah blah. He wishes the best to everybody for season two. So I have no idea why he's not coming back for season two, but he's not. So, but I thought he was probably one of the highlights of the whole season.
Yes. Performance wise too. It was just great performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that he still looks pretty elfish, and I like that they investigated that because we are told in the Silmarillion that these elves, they wake up on the shores of Quivian in this mysterious lake, and it's for whatever reason it's far, far to the east of where they're supposed to be, or where they're going to end up, because then they trek off to Valinor, right? And it's going to take them like ages to get to where they're supposed to. Why God made them walk up on the other end of the world, who wake up over there, who knows? But then we're told, like every night or whatever, a few of them, well, there's not really nights, it's just eternal twilight because there's no sun or moon yet. But every, so often, a few of them just won't be found anymore. The stragglers will just disappear into the darkness of the woods and stuff. So, they're being captured by Melkor and they're being turned into orcs, or they're just being twisted out of shape. And this is one of those guys who technically then really should be the oldest character who's not an angel. But like the oldest character in the show, because even Galadriel is like 2 generations later. I mean, her grandparents were the ones who woke up the Quivianen, right? And for Celebrimbor, it's like his great grandparents were the ones who woke up the Quivianen. So, and Gil-galad, I think it's also like great grandparents. So these are like 2nd or 3rd generation elves. They're still pretty close to being like toward the beginning, but they're not at the beginning. And he was there on that shore of that lake and woke up as an elf, and then got captured and twisted by evil. And here he is, ages later, still around. So I thought that was really cool. I really loved his character, his motivations, and the fact the sun didn't hurt him, right? He could go out in the sun. It was just that all his I don't know if they're technically offspring, but his people,
his children, didn't he call them his children?
He might call them his children, whether that's literal or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's kind of like, I'm not sure how orcs reproduce, but do I want to know? I don't know, but still, they can't go out in the sun, and he grieves for that, right? Because he loves them. They're his children, and I liked that he feels for them. He still has these feelings, and he's still capable of feeling love. He's still capable of wanting to care for things. It's just that they're orcs, and so the rest of the characters aren't going to be too keen on that. But that they used him, and he's one of these original elves, I just love that.
Very cool.
All right. Anything you want to see for season 2?
Oh,
they haven't let us
man.
know anything.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to see more of that character. The son, the Numenor son that was, yeah. I mean, obviously he's going to have a big role, so I'm kind of excited to see what they fill in between then and what we know, right? So I'm pretty excited about that. I like the Gandalf. I've always been a Gandalf fan, so I'm kind of interested to see what goes on with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little upset that Elendil, who told us, he is the one who told us that Numenorian horses bond with their riders, right? And that so the fact that the horse wouldn't get on the ship and he let it run off and it had a direction it was headed out, it's like you didn't get that your kid's still alive and the horse is going to go pick him up.
Right.
And so now he's like, I wish I'd never, met Galadriel. I wish I'd done things differently, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you were the one who told us to trust the horses. And now you're like, I just completely ignoring what the horse was telling me.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a little thick, it seems. But yeah, obviously Isildur is somewhere and his horse knows it, and his horse is going to get him out of trouble, I guess. We'll find.
And the whole season, I need more dwarfs. We didn't really have enough of the dwarves. Yeah, I'm looking forward to more dwarfs. I hope next season.
I think Disa is great. I mean, she's again one of my favorite characters. Adar and Disa were definitely just great, and I love that she's so supportive of her husband. Right, like she's like, well, your father's like this, but you are going to be like a great king, and you're going to, she's his big support there. During and. She sees things pretty clearly, and the whole singing to the rocks thing was really cool. And so, I mean, I just in love with Disa, and just like with Adar, I think those are great characters. I hope we see more of them, a lot more. Obviously, we'll see more of Isildur, and then Nori and Gandalf are obviously going to have some kind of adventure. I'm assuming we'll see Celebrimbor and Elrond and Galadriel do something with those rings. I'm assuming maybe we'll see Sauron forging the other rings at Mount Doom before he makes the one.
I could go without seeing any more of the High King. I'm not really.
Well, we've said that before.
My favorite character.
Gil-galad seems a bit more like a sort of befuddled middle manager here. He just doesn't seem he isn't at gravitas. He doesn't seem like he's a king. Just really just like puzzled and kind of petty. I don't know. Just
like
this is a High King. I mean, I thought Gil-galad.
Yeah.
So he did not do anything for me. Most of the elves didn't. Galadriel, I liked her okay, because I think what they've done here is they tried to show her like she was, like if you read the Silmarillion, way back before she left Valinor. Because as a young woman in Valinor, she was very brash, she was very impulsive. She didn't think before she acted, and so now we're seeing that where by this point in the book, she's kind of calmed down a lot, but she's many thousands of years older, and she's got a husband and a kid, and it's been several thousand years, and so I think we're kind of seeing that this is what she used to be like, but we're moving it up in this show so that we can kind of see that contrast, I guess, her later being this much more thoughtful person, whereas here
she makes a lot of mistakes.
She makes a lot of mistakes, and yep. She sort of just jumps off things and just like goes, with her instincts, and her instincts aren't always right. So yeah, I think she's okay, I guess. But I think I understand why they're going that direction with her. So hopefully we'll see much more of that kind of stuff, and then we'll see what's going on with the Southlanders. At some point, they'll realize their king's not coming back, I guess. But I'm not sure where their story goes from here, because we just kind of left it. They're just kind of standing there, and now the mountain's blown up, and a lot of them are dead. And all the elves, besides the one dude, Arondir, they all got captured by the orcs and got killed in the forced labor with digging those tunnels. So there's an elf.
I forgot about Arondir. Yeah, I forgot about it.
So so we got one elf and a few Southlanders still sort of hanging out, but what plot points they could drive, I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah.
So definitely we want more dwarves too, and we'll get one more obviously of Nori and the stranger. Whether or not we see the other proto hobbits, I don't know. I'm not sure I care that much. They still annoy me a lot because the whole nobody goes off the trail, nobody walks alone. Oh, but you're injured. We're just gonna leave you behind. Stuff was like, what?
They did it again in this episode, and I thought of you when they did the little cheer this time, without I think the older man, and then of course she's not going with them, right? I mean, it's not the same, but I still thought it was funny.
It is her choice, but yeah, and it's like, no, and she's all of us like, and when her father, in the last episode makes that whole impassioned plea about how, yeah, so our carts are destroyed, but we're Harfoots or whatever, and we're going to come together and we always have community. And you're like, no, you don't. You'll leave. You almost got left behind when you broke your ankle. Like way back in episode 1, they were like, oh, well, it was only because the stranger pushed your freaking cart that you managed to survive. Your family wasn't just left behind to the wolves or something. I mean, so yeah, we mentioned that before though, but yeah, that the contradiction between they claim that they have community and then they just leave people to die. It's like, no, they can't have
And all the plot points that they're in are when people have peeled off. Right, every single plot point they're in is when they've peeled off. I do like that it's leading toward not all who wander are lost. I mean, that of course the hobbits, that we get Bilbo, who's such a wanderer, right, like a traveler and all that stuff. So I feel like they set that up a little bit, but yeah, I could care less if I see much the whole Harfoot thing again.
Okay. All right. Well, if you stuck with us to the end, I appreciate it. If you have any comments on how you felt about the whole season or just this particular episode, put them down in the comments. We'd like to hear from you. Maybe you completely disagree with something we said, and I'd be interested in hearing that. Then also hit that like and subscribe.
What do you hope to see
for season 2? And I would like season 2 to come out really soon now. Because we've been waiting for a long time. And they just won't say. It's like you finish shooting it, and we'll have to see how different if it's going to look different, because they shot that first season in New Zealand, but the second season they're shooting in Britain, so they won't have the same locations available. But I'm assuming like the sets that are interior sets they can just recreate. But
it was beautiful.
I thought a lot of it. I mean, they put like $1 billion into this, into this, but like a lot of it was on the screen. But every single costume was fantastic. Right.
Yeah.
And when they bother to linger on the elves, if you're really looking at their clothes, there's just so much detailing everywhere on all those things those elves are wearing and the dwarves and everything. So, I mean, a lot of that money is right up there on the screen, and it's gorgeous. So maybe season 2 will be just as gorgeous, and we'll get some more stories with some characters that we really like Disa and Adar, and we'll see what Halbrand is going to do down there at Mount Doom. So. All right, make sure you press like and subscribe, and we'll look forward to checking out season 2 with you later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.